The morning sky over Hawaii shimmered with the first golden rays of sunrise. Dr. Alan Wright yawned and rubbed his tired eyes. For the third night in a row, he had barely slept. The unusual signal patterns on his monitor demanded his complete attention. "More coffee?" asked his assistant, Ben. "Please, strong as you can make it," Alan replied, never taking his eyes off the screen. The Global Space Observatory, nestled on the Big Island's remote northern coast, was the most advanced listening post on Earth. Its massive array of radio telescopes and quantum signal processors scanned the depths of space continuously, and for the past 72 hours, they had been picking up something extraordinary. Alan leaned forward as another burst of data appeared. There it is again. Same pattern, same frequency, but stronger this time. The door to the observatory opened with a soft hiss. Lieutenant Carol Simmons strode in, her Air Force uniform crisp despite the early hour. As military liaison to the observatory, she received alerts about anything unusual. "Tell me you figured out what's causing those signals, Doctor," she said, her voice tight with barely concealed tension. Alan shook his head. "Not natural, that's for certain. The pattern repeats with mathematical precision. Look here." He pointed to a sequence on the screen. "Prime numbers, then these sequences that correspond to atomic structures. This isn't random cosmic noise." Carol's expression darkened. "You're saying it's intelligent. I'm saying it's deliberate. And it's coming from something that's moving toward our solar system at speeds that—" He hesitated. "That shouldn't be possible." Ben returned with coffee and nearly dropped the mug when he saw the newest data. "Dr. Wright, the signal strength just increased by a factor of 10. All three watched as the observatory's main screen shifted to an orbital view. A massive object had appeared at the edge of Neptune's orbit. It moved with impossible speed, its surface gleaming with lights that pulsed in patterns matching the signals they had detected. "How did it get past our deep space monitors?" Carol demanded. "It didn't pass them," Alan whispered. "It just appeared, like it folded space somehow." Carol grabbed her secure phone. "This is Lieutenant Simmons. Activate Protocol Omega. This is not a drill." Within hours, the object had reached Mars. Earth's governments scrambled into emergency sessions. Military forces worldwide went to their highest alert status. The social media blackout couldn't prevent panic as amateur astronomers spotted the visitor. At the United Nations, representatives argued frantically about how to respond. In the observatory, Alan and his team worked desperately to decode the increasingly complex transmissions emanating from the vessel. "It's slowing down," Alan noted as the object approached Earth orbit. "And the signal pattern is changing." "We're receiving something new," Ben said, his voice shaking. It's in English, and Mandarin, and Russian, and dozens of other languages." The message appeared simultaneously on screens across the globe, broadcasting on all frequencies, bypassing every security measure on Earth. "People of Earth, your resources have been cataloged, your technology assessed, your military capabilities measured. The Dravian Imperium claims this system. Prepare for integration." Carol's phone rang. "Lieutenant Simmons," she answered. Her face paled as she listened. "Yes, sir. I understand." She hung up and turned to Alan. "The President is activating the emergency response team. You and I have been summoned to Washington immediately." As they rushed to the waiting helicopter, Alan looked up at the sky. The visitor wasn't visible to the naked eye yet, but he could feel his presence, an immense weight pressing down on humanity. "What do they want from us?" Ben asked, following them to the landing pad. "Nothing good," Carol replied grimly. "Nothing good at all." The United Nations Emergency Chamber buzzed with frightened whispers. World leaders sat shoulder to shoulder, political differences forgotten in the face of the alien vessel, now clearly visible from Earth as a dark spot crossing the moon. Dr. Alan Wright fidgeted uncomfortably in his seat beside Lieutenant Carol Simmons. They had been flown to New York on a military jet after their discovery at the observatory. I still can't believe we're actually doing this, Alan whispered. Carol nodded grimly. First contact. Not how anyone imagined it would go. The UN Secretary-General, Elena Rodriguez, approached the podium. Her normally confident voice wavered slightly as she addressed the assembly. We have received another transmission from the vessel. They are sending what they call an emissary to address us directly. They have requested. She paused. Or rather, demanded a meeting with Earth's leadership within the hour. The chamber erupted into chaos until Rodriguez raised her hand. The Security Council has already voted. We will meet with this emissary. A small delegation has been selected to represent humanity. A list of names appeared on the main screen. Alan's stomach dropped when he saw his name listed third, after Rodriguez and renowned diplomat Gregory Patel. Lieutenant Simmons will serve as security liaison, Rodriguez continued. The meeting will take place here, in 1 hour. Exactly 60 minutes later, the lights in the chamber flickered. A column of shimmering light appeared in the center of the room. Guards raised their weapons, but Carol signaled them to hold fire. The light coalesced into a tall, humanoid figure. Its skin was pale blue with faint luminescent patterns. 6-fingered hands emerged from long, flowing robes. Its face was almost human, but with larger eyes that seemed to shift color as it surveyed the room. I am the emissary of the Dravian Imperium, it announced, its voice melodious but cold. I speak with the full authority of the imperial hierarchy. Secretary Rodriguez stepped forward. I am Elena Rodriguez, Secretary General of the United Nations. This is Gregory Patel, our chief diplomat, and Dr. Alan Wright, who first detected your signals. The emissary's gaze fixed on Alan, who fought the urge to step back. The scientist, it said, impressive that you detected our approach at all, given your primitive technology. Gregory Patel cleared his throat. We would like to understand your intentions toward Earth. My intentions. The emissary seemed amused. They are not my intentions, but those of the Imperium. We control 300 systems across this galactic sector. Earth has been surveyed and found acceptable for integration. Integration? Rodriguez asked. Your world possesses resources valuable to the Imperium. Your species shows potential for service. You will be assigned protected status and contribute to our civilization. Alan couldn't stay silent. You're talking about conquest. The emissary tilted its head. A primitive concept. We offer advancement, structure, purpose. The alternative would be unpleasant for your species. Carol stepped forward. Are you threatening us? Merely stating facts. Resistance to integration has historically required corrective measures. None have succeeded in resisting. Many have not survived the attempt. Patel, ever the diplomat, interjected. Surely we can discuss terms that would be mutually. There are no terms to discuss, the emissary interrupted. You have 30 of your days to prepare your population and infrastructure for integration. I will remain on your world to oversee preparations and answer essential questions. The emissary produced a small device that projected a holographic map of Earth with various points highlighted. These locations will serve as processing centers. Your military forces will stand down. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate response. The emissary's eyes darkened. Do not test the patience of the Dravian Imperium. As the meeting adjourned, Alan caught Carol's eye. Her expression mirrored his own dread. 30 days, she whispered. That's all we have to save our world. The military transport helicopter descended into a remote valley in the Rocky Mountains. Dr. Alan Wright peered through the window at what appeared to be nothing more than a mining operation. Lieutenant Carol Simmons sat beside him, reviewing documents on a secure tablet. I still don't understand why we're here, Alan said over the roar of the rotors. We should be in Washington helping coordinate the response. Carol didn't look up. You'll understand soon enough. The helicopter landed on a concrete pad. Armed guards escorted them into what looked like an ordinary elevator in a small outbuilding. When the doors closed, Carol placed her palm on a hidden scanner. Lieutenant Carol Simmons. Authorization Echo 79. The elevator began to descend, much faster and longer than Alan expected. When the doors finally opened, he gasped. They stood at the entrance of an enormous underground facility. Scientists in lab coats hurried across the polished floor. Military personnel manned security stations. Giant screens displayed data, maps, and what appeared to be schematics for advanced technology. "Welcome to Project Sentinel," Carol said quietly. "Our last hope." A tall woman with short gray hair approached them. "Lieutenant Simmons, Dr. Wright. I'm Dr. Olivia Kent. Thank you for coming." She led them through the busy facility. While the world's governments have been preparing for possible alien contact, a small group of us have been working on something else entirely. They entered a large circular chamber. In the center stood a device unlike anything Alan had ever seen. It pulsed with a strange blue energy that seemed to bend the light around it. 10 years ago, Dr. Kent explained, we detected unusual energy readings in Antarctica. Not alien. They were coming from deep within the Earth itself, a form of energy we'd never encountered before. Alan stared at the device. "You've managed to harness it." "Barely," Dr. Kent admitted. "But yes, we've developed technology that can generate defensive shields, disrupt advanced electrical systems, and potentially much more." A broad-shouldered man in a military uniform joined them. Major Jack Wilson, Special Forces. He shook Alan's hand firmly. "Our intelligence suggests the Dravians have conquered dozens of civilizations, some more advanced than ours. They follow the same pattern each time. Announce their presence, demand submission, then strip the planet of resources." "But they're giving us 30 days, Alan said. "Why not just take what they want immediately?" "Efficiency," Major Wilson replied. "They prefer compliant populations to dead ones. Less work for them." "So what's the plan?" Carol asked. Dr. Kent gestured to the screens around them. "We're deploying smaller versions of this technology at strategic locations worldwide. If we can power them up simultaneously, we might be able to create a planetary defense system." "Might." Alan raised an eyebrow. "It's untested against alien technology," Dr. Kent admitted. "But it's the only card we have to play." The facility's commander, General Frank Harris, joined their group. His weathered face looked grim. "We need to buy time," he said. "The official response will appear to be compliance. Meanwhile, we'll position our assets and prepare for the only chance we'll get." "The emissary is watching our every move," Carol pointed out. "How do we hide this?" "We don't hide everything," General Harris replied. "Just the important parts. Let them see what we want them to see." Dr. Kent brought up a holographic display of Earth. Small points of light appeared at various locations. "We need 3 more weeks to complete the network. Your job, Dr. Wright, is to help us understand their technology from your observatory data. And you, Lieutenant," Major Wilson added, "will help coordinate with military assets worldwide without alerting the Dravians." Alan looked around at the determined faces. A week ago, he had been an astronomer studying distant stars. Now he was part of Earth's last defense against an alien invasion. "When do we start?" he asked. General Harris checked his watch. 29 days, 14 hours until the deadline. We've already started." The emissary walked through the United Nations building, flanked by 2 UN security guards who looked nervous in its presence. Gregory Potel led the tour, pointing out Earth's achievements with practiced diplomatic charm. "And this hall contains artwork from all of our member nations," he explained, deliberately slowing his pace. "Each piece tells a story about human culture and history." The emissary showed no interest. "Your integration preparations proceed too slowly. The collection centers must be completed within 14 days. Gregory nodded politely. "We're doing our best, but coordinating global efforts takes time. Perhaps you could extend the deadline by a few weeks." "Impossible," the emissary stated flatly. "The Imperial fleet has schedules to maintain. Other worlds await integration." While Gregory kept the emissary occupied, Lieutenant Carol Simmons stood on a New York rooftop, watching as several small Dravian probe ships entered Earth's atmosphere. They weren't trying to hide. The aliens were confident in their superiority. Her secure phone buzzed. "Simmons here. The probes are following the exact flight paths we predicted," said Major Wilson's voice. "Our tracking systems are recording every detail, and they haven't detected our observation posts. No, they're scanning for known military technology. Our new shielding is keeping us invisible to them." Carol watched as one probe flew directly over Manhattan. "They're surveying infrastructure, cataloging everything. Let them look. They're seeing what we want them to see." Beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Alan Wright and Dr. Olivia Kent worked frantically to analyze the data streaming in from sensors around the world. Their ships generate some kind of field that distorts space around them, Alan said, pointing to readings on his screen. "That's how they achieve such impossible speeds." Olivia nodded. "And that same field technology appears vulnerable to our energy pulses. Look at these simulation results." Their work was interrupted as General Harris entered the lab. "Status report. 17 facilities online," Olivia replied. 8 more nearing completion. We need another 10 days minimum." "We may not have 10 days. The Dravians are accelerating their timetable. They're moving equipment into position earlier than announced." Alan frowned. "Why the rush?" "Lieutenant Simmons discovered something interesting," General Harris said. "The emissary seems fixated on our space technology, or rather, our lack of it. They're underestimating us," Olivia realized. "Precisely. They see our primitive rockets and satellites and assume our other technology is equally undeveloped." In a secure room in Washington, a team of specialists monitored one of the crashed Dravian probe ships secretly recovered from the ocean. They had carefully moved it to a facility equipped with Dr. Kent's energy field technology to mask their activities. "The materials are unlike anything we've seen," reported a scientist over video conference to Alan and Olivia. "But the basic principles are understandable. Their computer systems are vulnerable to the energy pulses you developed." Across the globe, military assets quietly repositioned. Commercial shipping containers delivered components of Dr. Kent's invention to key locations. Civilian infrastructure projects served as cover for the installation of energy collectors, all while appearing to prepare for Dravian integration. At the UN, Gregory Patel continued his diplomatic dance. "The emissary has requested daily progress reports," he told the Emergency Council. "I've been overwhelming it with paperwork, thousands of pages of bureaucratic details that mean nothing." Secretary General Rodriguez nodded. "Good. And the actual preparations?" "Proceeding according to schedule. We need just 8 more days." "You may not have them," warned a general. "Our intelligence suggests the Dravian mothership is preparing for some kind of operation. They may be planning to start integration early." Carol entered the chamber, looking grim. "Confirmed. The emissary just informed us that, due to our inefficiency, they're moving up the timeline. Integration begins in 3 days." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Then we move up our timetable too," Rodriguez decided. "Tell Dr. Kent and her team. Whatever they have ready in 3 days is what we'll use." "And if it's not enough?" someone asked. Carol's expression hardened. "Then humanity goes down fighting." The Dravian mothership hovered over the Atlantic Ocean, its massive shadow darkening the waters below. Smaller craft buzzed around it like worker bees, preparing for the integration that would begin the next day. In the command center beneath the Rockies, final preparations were underway. Dr. Olivia Kent hadn't slept in 36 hours, her eyes red-rimmed but focused as she calibrated the energy network. "Status report," General Harris demanded as he entered the room. 23 facilities operational," Olivia replied without looking up. "The global network is at 68% capacity. It's not what we hoped for, but it might be enough." Alan Wright studied the latest data from the Dravian ship. "Their shields are cycling every 14 minutes. If we time this right, There's a brief window of vulnerability. The secure line beeped. Lieutenant Carol Simmons appeared on screen from New York. The emissary has agreed to a final meeting. Tonight at 1900 hours aboard their ship. Are you sure about this? General Harris asked. If they discover our plan. They won't. Gregory Patil interrupted, joining the video call. The emissary believes we're preparing our final surrender terms. Its arrogance is our advantage. 6 hours later, a small shuttle carried Dr. Alan Wright, Lieutenant Carol Simmons, and diplomat Gregory Patil toward the Dravian mothership. Each carried a specialized communication device hidden in their clothing, connecting them to Project Sentinel. Remember, Carol whispered as they approached the alien vessel, stay calm and stick to the script. A beam of light pulled their shuttle into a massive hangar bay. The doors opened to reveal the emissary waiting with several Dravian guards. You requested this audience, the emissary stated coldly. Your time is short. Gregory Patil stepped forward with practiced diplomatic poise. We come with humanity's official response to integration. The emissary led them through corridors of gleaming metal to a chamber that appeared to be a command center. Alien officers worked at stations displaying holographic maps of Earth. Your species has chosen wisely, the emissary said. Compliance will make this process much less painful. Gregory nodded respectfully. We have prepared a formal statement from Earth's United Governments. He gestured to Carol, who carried a small metal cylinder. What is this primitive container? The emissary asked. A traditional diplomatic vessel, Gregory explained. It contains our response and a symbolic gift. The emissary took the cylinder, clearly amused by the primitive offering. It pressed a hidden seam, and the top slid open. Inside was a small crystalline object. This is Earth's message, the emissary asked. Not quite, Alan said quietly. The message is what the crystal contains. The emissary removed the crystal, which began to glow with a soft blue light. Suddenly, a holographic projection appeared in the center of the chamber, far more advanced than any human technology the Dravians had observed. The projection showed a clear image of space, focusing on a small, uninhabited moon orbiting Neptune. As the Dravians watched, a pulse of blue energy engulfed the moon. Seconds later, the moon cracked, massive fissures spreading across its surface. This is happening right now, Carol said calmly. Not a recording. On the projection, the moon shattered into thousands of pieces, the debris floating in a cloud of dust. The emissary stared in shock. Impossible. Your technology is primitive. We allowed you to believe that, Alan replied. We've been watching your empire expand for longer than you realize. Gregory stepped forward. This is humanity's one and only warning. Leave our solar system immediately, or the next demonstration will not be on an uninhabited rock. The emissary's color darkened with anger. You dare threaten the Dravian Imperium. Your puny planet cannot stand against our might. Perhaps not, Carol said. But we can ensure that Earth would be the most costly conquest in your history. Is one small planet worth losing half your fleet? The command center fell silent as the emissary considered their words. You have made a grave miscalculation, it finally said. The Imperial fleet will not be intimidated by parlor tricks. Gregory's expression hardened. Then we have nothing more to discuss. As they were escorted back to their shuttle, Alan whispered to Carol, They're calling our bluff. Then it's a good thing, she replied quietly, that we're not bluffing. The dawn sky turned ominous as hundreds of Dravian shuttles descended through Earth's atmosphere. Their sleek metallic bodies caught the first rays of sunlight, making them look like falling stars. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, screens display the invasion in real time. General Harris watched grimly as the alien craft spread across the globe. They're targeting major cities first, he noted, just as we predicted. Dr. Olivia Kent stood before the main control panel, her fingers dancing across the interface. Global network at full capacity. All nodes reporting ready status. Alan Wright monitored the incoming data. The first wave is entering lower atmosphere. 217 ships, primarily troop carriers. "Are we sure about this?" asked Secretary General Rodriguez over the secure video link. "Once we activate the system, there's no going back." "They've made their choice," General Harris replied. "Now we make ours." Olivia looked to the general, who gave a solemn nod. "Activating Project Sentinel. Now." She pressed her palm against a glowing panel. Throughout the facility, the lights dimmed momentarily as power surged through the system. Around the world, hidden installations hummed to life, drawing energy from Earth's newly discovered power source. In New York, Lieutenant Carol Simmons stood on the rooftop of the UN building with Gregory Patel, watching as Dravian shuttles approached Manhattan. Suddenly, the air seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. "It's starting," she said quietly. The nearest Dravian shuttle faltered mid-flight. Its engines sputtered and died. For a moment, it hung in the air, then plummeted toward the Hudson River. More shuttles began to fail, their sleek forms tumbling from the sky. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Tokyo, London, Cairo, and dozens of other cities, Dravian ships lost power and crashed into oceans, fields, and empty streets. The human military had evacuated civilians from likely landing zones days earlier, ensuring minimal casualties. In the Dravian mothership, alarms blared as screens displayed the catastrophe unfolding below. The emissary rushed to the command center, its normally composed demeanor shattered. "What is happening?" it demanded. "Unknown energy field covering the planet," a Dravian officer reported. "Our shuttles lose all power when they enter the lower atmosphere." "Impossible. Their technology can't." The emissary's words died as the ship shuddered violently. The massive vessel's outer weapons platforms began powering up, targeting Earth's surface. "Prepare the primary cannons," the emissary ordered. "If they resist integration, we will demonstrate the consequences." In the mountain facility, Alan's monitor flashed a warning. "They're charging weapons." Olivia nodded. "Right on schedule. Transitioning to Phase 2. She adjusted the controls, and the energy signature changed. The blue glow emanating from the central device intensified, pulsing in a rhythmic pattern. On screens around the room, similar installations worldwide synchronized with the central hub. "Energy shield extending," Olivia announced. "Coverage at 90%, 95%, 100%. Above Earth, a shimmering field of energy became visible, expanding outward from the planet. When the Dravian mothership fired its first volley, the energy beams struck the shield and dissipated harmlessly. "Targeting system activated," Alan called out. Energy pulses locked on their weapons platforms. Olivia shifted the controls again. Firing. From the planet's surface, dozens of blue energy beams shot upward, piercing the shield from within and striking the Dravian vessel with surgical precision. One by one, the alien weapon platforms exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Inside the mothership, chaos reigned. Consoles exploded, and emergency containment fields activated as sections of the hull were breached. "Half our weapons are disabled," reported a Dravian officer. "The energy field is preventing our self-repair systems from functioning." The emissary stared at the viewscreen in disbelief as another salvo of energy beams struck the ship, disabling more systems. "Impossible," it whispered. They were primitive, defenseless. On the communications channel, Gregory Patel's voice came through clearly. "This is Earth's defense force. Your invasion has failed. Your ships are falling from our skies. Your weapons are useless against us. The defense network is holding stable," Olivia reported as the facility erupted in cautious cheers. "We've neutralized their first attack completely." General Harris allowed himself a small smile. "Now we see if they're smart enough to retreat." "And if they're not?" asked Alan. The general's expression hardened. "Then they learn why it's a mistake to underestimate humanity." The Dravian mothership hung motionless above Earth, most of its weapons systems destroyed, its shuttle fleet decimated. Emergency repairs were underway, but the vessel was clearly crippled. In the Mountain Command Center, the atmosphere had shifted from desperate tension to cautious optimism. Dr. Olivia Kent monitored the energy shield surrounding Earth, making minor adjustments to maintain stability. "The shield is holding at 96% efficiency," she reported. "We can maintain this level for approximately 72 hours before the system requires a reset." General Harris nodded. "That should be more than enough time." A communications officer turned from her station. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Dravian vessel. They're requesting to speak with Earth's leadership." On the main screen, the emissary appeared. Its normally perfect appearance was disheveled, with scorch marks visible on its robes. Behind it, Dravian crew members rushed to repair damaged systems. "This is General Frank Harris of Earth's Unified Defense Force. State your purpose." The emissary's expression was unreadable, but its voice carried a new tone, something close to respect, or perhaps fear. "Your defense capabilities were unexpected. The Imperium wishes to avoid further conflict." Secretary General Rodriguez joined the video call from the UN bunker. "Are you proposing a ceasefire?" "I am authorized to negotiate terms for our withdrawal," the emissary replied carefully. In New York, Gregory Patel and Lieutenant Carol Simmons were quickly transported to the UN building. They entered a secure conference room where a holographic projection of the emissary awaited. "Before we discuss terms," Gregory began, "we require an explanation. How did you know about Earth? Why target our world specifically?" The emissary hesitated before answering. "Your radio transmissions have been monitored for decades. Your world appeared to be resource-rich, but technologically primitive. An ideal candidate for integration." "You mean conquest," Carol corrected. "A distinction without difference to the Imperium," the emissary replied coldly. "Until now, no world has successfully resisted." Gregory leaned forward. "Here are our terms. The Dravian Imperium will immediately withdraw all forces from our solar system. Earth will be registered as protected, sovereign territory. Any future contact will be conducted through proper diplomatic channels, with advance notice. And if we refuse..." Dr. Alan Wright, who had joined the conference remotely, spoke up. "The energy signature you detected, what you thought was our only weapon, is merely one application of the technology. We have others." His screen displayed data from the destroyed moon, showing that the demonstration had used only a fraction of Earth's new energy network's capacity. The emissary's eyes narrowed. "You've hidden your true capabilities well. The Imperium underestimated your species. A common mistake when encountering humans," Gregory noted. "One we suggest you not repeat." After several tense hours of negotiation, the terms were finalized. The damaged Dravian vessel would be allowed to make essential repairs before departing the solar system. A formal recognition of Earth's sovereign status would be transmitted to the Imperium's central authority. As the emissary's hologram faded, Carol turned to Gregory. "Do you think they'll honor the agreement?" "They have little choice," he replied. "We've demonstrated we can defend ourselves. The cost of conquering Earth would outweigh any benefit." 3 days later, the world watched as the massive Dravian ship slowly retreated from Earth orbit. People gathered in streets and parks, gazing upward as the threat that had loomed over humanity disappeared into the depths of space. In the White House Rose Garden, a historic announcement was broadcast globally. The newly formed Earth Defense Force would unite military and scientific resources from all nations. Dr. Olivia Kent was appointed Chief Scientific Officer, tasked with continuing research into the energy source that had saved humanity. "This is just the beginning," President Reyes declared. "Humanity now knows we are not alone in the universe. We must be prepared for whatever, or whoever, we might encounter next." In the observatory in Hawaii, where it had all begun, Dr. Alan Wright stood with Lieutenant Carol Simmons, gazing at the star-filled sky. "What do you think happens now?" Alan asked. Carol smiled. "Now we take our rightful place among the stars. Not as servants or subjects, but as equals." On a desk behind them, star charts were spread out, with several systems circled in red, the known territory of the Dravian Imperium. Beside them lay plans for Earth's first true interstellar vessel. The warning had been delivered and heeded. Humanity's next message to the stars would be delivered in person.